Right. YouTube's thinking about it. Okay, so why don't we get started? There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. And before I jump in, I'm actually going to hand it over to Eliza for her to introduce herself to the planning board.
Thanks, Reagan. Like she said, my name's Lisa Neal. I was hired by the town of Stanley on April 6th. So I've been here for a couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to meeting everybody, looking forward to serving the town and working with the planning board.
Elisa.
Elisa, yeah.
Perfect. All right, welcome. Welcome everyone. I'm hoping Ron can jump on as well, but we'll get started for now. And tonight we're talking about the Town of Stanley 2030 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Y'all are very familiar with this at this point. The planning board, having served as the steering committee, y'all have been very involved in this process. And so it's great to kind of see the process come full circle. Y'all have been working closely with us on this land use plan for a number of months, and Matt and I have been working on it since even before then. So it's great to see the final product come together and to be able to bring it back to the town and say, you know, this is the product, this is, you know, what we've been able to hear from the community over the last several months. So we're really excited about that. A lot of this is not going to be new information, and so I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible. But, you know, before we jump in, just first and foremost wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been involved. So especially our steering committee, those of y'all who are on the call right now. Your work, your feedback, your time is so appreciated and has really made this plan what it is. You've really been the guiding force behind it. And so I can't tell you how much we appreciate that commitment on your behalf. We also really appreciate all the work the staff has put in, the staff for the town of Stanley, Heath, Olga, and Elisa coming out to that last community open house a couple weeks ago. Y'all have been so dedicated, so helpful in answering questions, and really getting this plan to where it needs to be. And of course, the community as well. We've gotten so much great feedback, and this plan is really reflective not just of the steering committee, but of the entire community of Stanley. And I think that's something that makes this plan really special. And so without further ado, tonight we're presenting the town of Stanley's first ever comprehensive plan.
Reagan, if I may, I'm sorry if I may jump in. I just wanted to say, because this is going to be an official meeting, we do need 4 members of the planning board for a quorum. I may have missed that if it was already touched on. Are we going to have anybody else? I think you said somebody else was going to be joining soon from the planning commission.
I think Ronald didn't say he wasn't able to make it, but
okay.
I'm waiting to, I did send him a follow-up email, but I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay. You know, and one option we have is to cover the details of the plan. We won't be able to take a vote until Ronald does show. But I don't, because Ronald's been with us the entire, you know, step of the process, as with the rest of the committee members, there's for no reason should that hold up the process. So I would proceed. I do apologize for interrupting here, and then we can just wait for the vote until Ronald does show up.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, thank you, Matt. And I guess too, I want to make sure, I don't know if anyone's tuned in yet on the live stream, but for those who haven't been at the steering committee meetings, I'm Reagan Murphy, and my colleague Matt and I have been, we are with Central Iowa Regional Council, and we have been the consultant team on this project. So we've been helping to guide the steering committee meetings, facilitate some of the open house events, the community engagement, and just kind of direct the process, and really distill all the inputs we've received from the community and the steering committee into this final plan. And this plan is a really exciting thing for the town of Stanley. This is going to serve as a resource, not just for the planning board, but for the town council and for the entire community. It's really, you can think of it almost as a time capsule, right? A capture of the vision by the community for the town of Stanley at this moment in time. So it's a really specific vision. It's a really specific document, and really, you know, can be used not just by elected officials, although it's designed for that, right? It's designed to be an aid in decision-making around land use and development in Stanley, but also by the community as well to help reinforce their vision for the community and their goals and values. And so with that, we'll jump into the presentation content. And again, a lot of this is not new information to y'all as the steering committee. This will be a recap of a lot of the work that we've done over the last, 7 or 8 months. So we'll refresh and then we'll open it up for discussion. So any last comments, feedback, questions y'all have, we can talk through. And then as Matt said, we'll wait until Ronald jumps on before we call for any sort of vote. So with that, if PowerPoint would cooperate. Great. So as I mentioned, this plan has been almost a year in the making. Matt and I first dove into this back in August of 2021. That's when we started a lot of the data gathering and mapping activities that formed the existing conditions chapter of the plan. So really providing the background and context for where Stanley is right now and where Stanley has come from in the last 10 or 20 years. And then really in full started our community engagement process in about mid-November. We had our first steering committee with y'all in November, and we began our community survey and some of our in-person community engagement efforts in November and December of 2021, culminating at the end of January. So for those kind of 2.5 months, we were really engaged with the community, seeking input and feedback to help guide the vision and values that have shaped the plan. And when that time frame concluded, as you, the steering committee, know, we came to you and said, all right, help us distill all the feedback we've heard into a cohesive vision statement and some guiding principles for the plan. And so you helped us do just that. And that vision and guiding principles laid the framework for the policy recommendations that have shaped the plan. And I really do want to give y'all as a steering committee credit for this as well, because a lot of not just the broader vision and goals, but the specific strategy recommendations that are included in the plan came directly from the steering committee. And so, this plan really is a reflection of the steering committee's work and the town of Stanley's work. So want to, celebrate that. Absolutely. This plan really does reflect the community and where y'all hope to see Stanley go in the next 10 years. And so we are down here now at the bottom right-hand corner. We are in kind of the plan adoption phase. We've shared the draft plan with the community. We did that for a period of about 2.5 weeks in early April. We got some really good feedback from community members, especially at the open house event that you see pictured on the screen to the right. And we're able to incorporate that feedback into the final plan. The plan was also hosted online for about the same period, a little longer. It was about 3 weeks that the draft plan was hosted online. We got about 270 views. Oh, Ronald entered the waiting room. I'll let him in. So we actually got about 270 views of the plan online, according to the view calculator. Now, probably about, I don't know how many of those were me just opening it back up to look at it, but safe to say that folks in the community were actively seeking out the plan and seeking out opportunities to take a look and make sure their feedback was incorporated. So that's a really great thing as well. So PowerPoint. So again, this is really where we're diving into, just recapping, this is not new information for the steering committee for sure, but for anyone tuning in via YouTube, I think we still have, I don't know that we have any viewers. I'm keeping an eye on that as well, but This is the vision statement that we and the steering committee came up with for the plan, and really just encapsulating the priority of intentional and well-managed growth in Stanley. We're not opposed to growth. We just want it to be smart, well-intentioned, and thought through. And along with that, ensuring that there are opportunities in Stanley, not just for folks who live there today, but also for folks who may move there in the future. So really making sure Stanley is a community that supports everybody who's there now and everyone who is looking to be there in the future. The guiding principles center on 6 specific policy topics. These came out of the survey. So these topics emerged as major themes in the community survey. They were economic development, cultural resources, transportation and mobility, community facilities and services, housing, and land use. And as a steering committee, y'all came together and created these guiding principles, gave us some ideas for the specific priorities that we should focus on for each of these areas. And that really guided not just the document itself, but the policy recommendations and the implementation strategies that were recommended. We also created a future land use map. And I really want to emphasize this to y'all as the planning board. This is going to be perhaps the most useful part of this plan for all of y'all in your work as the planning board, because this is really the guiding map that says, okay, this is the type of community we'd like to see as we move into 2030. So as we're considering development decisions, as we're evaluating where certain types of development should go, this can be used as a framework and a tool as you make those decisions on what to recommend and where, and what types of strategies you want to implement as you're making development decisions to help realize the Stanley that you and the rest of the community want to see. This was based on existing land use and also projected future land use based on future projected population and employment growth. And we also did make some edits based on a couple pieces of feedback we received. One of those specifically was we wanted to make sure we incorporated the new community charter school that initially was not on the future land use map. So that is now reflected as an education parcel up in the top right of the map. But yeah, so did incorporate, this was one of the elements that was shown at that open house, and we made sure to incorporate feedback where we could. And then finally, I'm not going to read every single one of the policy recommendations. Y'all have seen them before, and in some cases you might have personally, recommended this policy recommendation. So really do want to emphasize that. And again, thank the steering committee for your work in developing these. But just emphasize, at a high level, for economic development, it's really important in Stanley to see a local economy that is diverse, that allows folks to meet their needs at home, and allows folks to not just live in Stanley, but live and work in Stanley if they desire to. Folks don't have to, the idea is that folks won't have to go outside of Stanley as often for some of their basic needs. So that's a really important priority of the plan. For cultural resources, Stanley is a gem in Gaston County and in the greater region. Historically and culturally, there are a lot of really incredible resources in Stanley. And so taking advantage of that, making sure the surrounding area knows that Stanley is a destination, that folks want to come here to see the culture, to shop, to participate, to be active in downtown, a beautiful downtown. Just really celebrating Stanley as a place, and helping the built environment reflect how special this town is to those who pass through it or those who stop and spend time here is really important. For transportation and mobility, we heard a lot of feedback both from the steering committee and from folks who completed the survey about the need for better connectivity in Stanley. And that seems to be a big priority for folks here. And not just road connectivity, but also pedestrian connectivity, sidewalks, accessible ramps, protected crossings. I heard from a citizen who was at the open house just a couple weeks ago that, folks used to have their kids walk to school, and you really don't see that anymore, because it's not as safe as it used to be to have folks walking on the roads. And so safety is a really big element of this plan, accessibility, connectivity, and especially emphasizing those pedestrian and bicycle connections are really important elements of the transportation section. For community facilities and services, we really heard an emphasis from y'all and from the community on healthy living. So access to recreation and an opportunity to appreciate the beautiful natural environment that's around Stanley is a big priority for folks in this community. So a lot of our recommendations focus on that. We also saw a lot of recommendations and a lot of feedback concerning the rate of growth and the ability of infrastructure to support growth. And so several of our recommendations in this section focus on that, focus on making sure that infrastructure is developed at a rate that can support new growth in Stanley, and that growth doesn't outpace supporting infrastructure. For housing, we heard a lot of feedback from folks encouraging home ownership. Stanley is a community that really values providing folks with the opportunity to settle down, to live here, to raise a family here. And that's a really incredible thing. We also heard that, Stanley wants to see cohesive community character. So even with higher density housing development, we want to make sure that it reflects Stanley's character and is aligned with other types of housing development in the community, so that we have a really cohesive community, a continuous feel from one portion of the community to another, so that it all feels like one Stanley. And finally, for land use, we heard that folks really want to preserve and protect the natural land around Stanley. That's really what gives Stanley the rural character and the quiet pace of life that makes Stanley so special, makes it what it is. So we heard a lot about, promoting development where development already is or near where development already is, and maintaining and protecting the open spaces that exist rather than filling those in first. So a lot of our recommendations center on that and taking advantage of the existing central business district and the existing downtown. And so that's really the bulk of the plan. I'll pause now and open it up for discussion. If y'all have any feedback, thoughts, questions, we're happy to hear those now.
Philip, I think you've done a terrific job capturing the community's input, and I think the plan looks like a great direction. And from here, I'm not sure if you're going to go into any other details about how we might be able to reach out for Centralina Council's support, or if this is kind of the end of the line formally. And it's been very nice having your expertise, and nice to have Elisa joining the conversation as well.
I will say, Philip, we are always here. We support the entire region. And so anything that Stanley needs in the future, we're happy to help with. We will be at the, pending how tonight goes, but we will be at the town council meeting next week with physical copies of what we assume will be the final plan. And we'll follow up after that as well with what is the adopted final plan. So we'll be back out in Stanley a couple times before the official end of this project. But also we're always here if y'all have questions or need any help at all with the plan or anything else. We're happy to provide support.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Ray, how you doing?
I'm good, Ronald. How are you?
I'm okay. Hey, I was I know we got some good feedback from the community during the open house, but did we ever get any clarification about the that D.R. Horton subdivision? Is that going to be part of Stanley, or did we ever find it out?
That's a great question. And Elisa, I'm wondering if you know anything more about that since that meeting.
I haven't heard anything as of yet.
So Ronald,
But-
with this, oh, go ahead, Elisa.
I'll keep researching it for everybody.
Yeah. I think at this time, Ronald, I would assume no.
Okay.
And at least for the sake of this plan, because it's not quite the same character as, for example, a zoning map where it's not, legally binding each parcel to a certain type of use. I think we're okay to proceed with the plan, even if that were to change in the future. Because once again, it's a recommendation and kind of a framework to proceed. So, it's not quite binding the way that another type of map might be. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I just was confused by looking at that map.
I
Okay.
know. Great question. Any other feedback, thoughts? Judy, I see you came off mute.
No, I was just going to ask, where was it proposed to be at, the
Yeah.
D.R. Horton subdivision we
believe-
talked about?
It's a little ways southeast along 27, I believe. But it's actually southeast even of the planning area that we looked at for the land use plan.
It's not the one down at Mount Holly beside the cemetery, is it?
I think that's right, actually.
That's
Ronald,
part of
does that
Mount
sound right?
Holly.
That's right.
That will be part of Mount Holly. That will not affect us. It'll be part of Mount Holly.
Perfect. Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or feedback? All right. I'm not seeing anyone come off mute. So at this time, I think Centralina would request that a recommendation be made to send the plan to the town council next week.
I'll make that motion to make a recommendation to send the proposed comprehensive land use plan to the town council.
This is Philip. I'll second that motion.
Great. All right, so then we'll move to a vote. All right. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I've done parliamentary procedure. All right. Do y'all typically do roll call votes for this or? Okay, great.
Yeah, because
So-
we're on Zoom. Mhm.
Right, perfect. Okay, so perfect. I'll just call each person and let me know what you think. Judy,
I approve.
Sally,
I approve.
Ronald,
I approve.
and Philip.
I approve.
All right, it has been unanimously approved. So this will be on the agenda at next week's town council meeting. So awesome. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate, again, all the hard work you've all put into this plan, and hopefully we'll see you next week. But if not, we'll be out, like I said, in Stanley a couple more times to bring out physical printed copies of the plan for the staff and the community. So hopefully we'll get to see y'all in the next few weeks.
Great.
All right. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Matt.
All right. And I'll stop the share.